In the story of early Christianity, there's one name that often gets overlooked, kind of stands in the shadows. But without this guy, the entire story might have played out completely differently. Today, we're talking about a true unsung hero, Barnabas. So we all know the Apostle Paul, right? He's this towering figure who wrote a huge chunk of the New Testament. But what if I told you that without another man championing him, we might never have even heard of him? That's the real question here. Who was the man that made the Apostle Paul even possible? To get how he made Paul possible, we first have to understand who he was. And really, it all comes down to the name he was given, the Son of Encouragement.
And here's what's incredible. Barnabas wasn't even his birth name. He was born Joseph. It was the apostles themselves who gave him this new name, which means Son of Encouragement. I mean, think about that for a second. His character was so defined by his ability to build other people up that it literally became his new identity.
And this guy had the credentials to back it all up. He was a Levite from Cyprus, which means he was totally steeped in the Mosaic law. But he also spoke Greek and was comfortable in the wider Gentile world. On top of all that, the scriptures just straight up describe him as a man full of the Holy Spirit and faith. He was the real deal, respected, educated, and deeply, genuinely faithful. And he didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. At a time when this whole movement was just a tiny, fledgling group, he sold a field he owned and gave all of the money to the apostles. No strings attached. This was just radical, open-handed generosity that showed you exactly where his heart was. So, this reputation for integrity and generosity, it set the stage perfectly for his most crucial contribution, stepping up to be the ultimate character witness. Okay, so let's set the scene. You've got Saul of Tarsus, the most feared persecutor of Christians, who has this dramatic, life-altering conversion. But when he shows up in Jerusalem, the disciples are, and you can't blame them, terrified. All they see is Saul the persecutor. They don't believe for a second this change is real. But Barnabas, he saw something different. He saw Saul the convert. He saw potential where absolutely everyone else just saw a threat. So what does he do? This is the pivot point. Saul arrives, the disciples push him away, and the whole story could have just ended right there. But Barnabas steps in. He physically takes Saul to meet the apostles and personally vouches for him, testifying that his conversion is the real deal. He put his own hard-earned reputation on the line for this guy. And because Barnabas had so much credibility, the community finally, cautiously, welcomed Saul. That single act of courage completely changed the course of history. So that act of faith launched one of the most effective partnerships in history. But, like any powerful collaboration, it eventually ran into a pretty significant problem. Together, Barnabas and Saul, who around this time starts going by his Roman name, Paul, they set off on their first big missionary journey. They travel all over from Cyprus to Pisidian Antioch, Iconium, and Lystra, and they were just incredibly successful. They were planting new communities of believers all across the Roman Empire. I mean, they were a total dream team. But then, they hit the breaking point, and the book of Acts doesn't sugarcoat it at all. It just says, "And there arose a sharp disagreement, so that they separated from each other." A sharp disagreement. So what on earth could possibly break up a team this good? Well, it all came down to a young man named John Mark, who happened to be Barnabas's cousin. See, he had joined them on the first trip, but then bailed on them partway through. Paul, ever the pragmatist, saw him as unreliable, a liability, and refused to take him again. But Barnabas, true to his name as the Son of Encouragement, wanted to give the kid another chance. You've got two valid perspectives and one massive problem. In this disagreement, it actually leads us to the final and maybe most powerful lesson from the life of Barnabas, the incredible power of second chances. Now what happened next is so important. They didn't just fight and go home. Instead, their disagreement actually multiplied the effort. Paul grabbed a new partner, Silas, and headed one way. And Barnabas, he took John Mark and sailed back to Cyprus. All of a sudden, you've got two missionary teams out there instead of just one. And here's the beautiful end to that whole story. Many years down the road, who do you think Paul is asking for? John Mark. In one of his letters, Paul himself admits that John Mark had become very useful to me for ministry. Barnabas's gut feeling, his belief in giving someone a second chance, was completely vindicated. His investment paid off, and even Paul eventually came around to see its value. So why does this ancient story still matter so much today?
It's because the world still desperately needs the modern Barnabas. Yeah, the sources we've looked at make this really powerful point. In a world that loves to celebrate the visionary, trailblazing Paul type, we should not minimize the value of the Barnabas role. It's an absolutely essential part of any successful team or movement.
So what does being a Barnabas look like today? Well, it's the person who provides life and leadership coaching. It's the person who comes alongside new leaders, the new Pauls of our time. They're the ones who champion young people who might mess up, just like John Mark did. And maybe most importantly, they are the ones who give people that critical second chance to succeed, because they see potential when everyone else just sees failure. And that really brings us to the final thought here. This story isn't just about ancient history. It's a blueprint for our own lives. It really pushes us to look around and ask a simple but pretty profound question. Who in your world needs a Barnabas? Who needs someone to step up, vouch for them, encourage them, and give them that all-important second chance?